Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The past year saw news headlines focused on commodities, the question of mine nationalisation and social mitigation in South Africa, as well as the search for shale gas in what's been termed the Shale Gale. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is in the studio to provide an overview of all this and more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Mine nationalisation and state mining companies have made headlines fairly often this year. What do you think 2011 will hold for this topic?
I think the debate and the research on the topic is poised to continue. You know, the ruling party's African National Congress has got independent researchers going into it. They've still got a report. And the ANC Youth League has already rejected the outcome. So, you know, the debate, I think, will continue to be strident, and that's on nationalisation. And there are a lot of ironies there because, you know, the Communist Party and the labour unions are against the nationalisation of mines, which is an irony, because in most parts of the world they would be in favour of mine nationalisation. And the capitalist-based ANC Youth League is in favour of nationalisation. Again, a huge irony. So there's still that underpin to deal with. And then onto the state mining company. Well, you know, it's still really a minnow. We have the African Exploration, Mining and Finance Corporation, which has got its first coal mining right, and it looks to be poised to work in the energy space, the energy coal area and uranium area. But exactly how it will be funded is a moot point, and what its strategy will be. If the Economic Development Department has got anything to do with it under Minister Ebrahim Patel, he will want it to have a developmental bent and to go what he calls for stage 4 beneficiation, which means taking your minerals and metals and, you know, converting them into higher value finished products. But exactly how it's going to be funded is still got to be debated. And then again, the Department of Economic and Development is saying, why don't we launch a sovereign wealth fund, as they do in other countries, as the financial underpin for the state mining company. But it seems like it's going to take a long time to get all the ducks in a row.
Now, coal has also been big news in 2010. What challenges and prospects do you think we can see for coal?
Well, again, coal began the year as a global villain, and in South African terms, it ended the year as a local virtue. And so people are still looking for the impact that coal has on the world climate change and how you measure that. So they haven't really got their carbon price yet. But in South Africa, you know, we ended the year with huge backing for coal and saying, look, we're just burning this coal and we're just putting CO2 into the atmosphere. There are many other things that can be done with this coal. You know, we know that Sasol extracts a lot out of it, not only transport fuels, petrol and diesel, but also, you know, treasure chest of chemicals. And again, coal of the coking kind is needed in steel making, and you get coal for cement making. And they're saying, look, it's such an important part of the economy, particularly now that there's peak oil in the world, which means that, you know, oil could be running out at some time. You know, look after your coal. And that's the latest call from the people who are from the Fossil Fuel Foundation. They're saying, you know, get every last drop of value out of your coal and don't use it the way you're using it now, and don't just export it either.
Can you tell us more about shale gas? I mean, what are the prospects for this one?
Yeah, earlier in the year we were hit by the Shale Gale, and that's not South Africa but the world, particularly the United States, because the United States has got a tremendous infrastructure for gas. And, you know, natural gas was seen as something that could play a role in the energy front. But all of a sudden there was a technological breakthrough with horizontal drilling, and it enabled people to access shale gas, which they hadn't been able to access in the past. Now there seems to be quite an abundance of this gas around, quite a lot in America, and it had such a game-changing role that it lowered the price of natural gas and sent a flurry of activity, you know, in America, searching for shale gas and finding it and putting it into the system. And also in other parts of the world, not the least South Africa, where those who were looking in the United States started looking around the world and also joined up with Sasol to look here. They were a little bit late. They were beaten by a smaller company called Falcon Oil and Gas, which has actually got to the epicenter of where we think our shale gas is in the Karoo. And so they've got the prime position. And then coming in ahead of the South Africans again was Shell, which got the second best position and a far larger area. And on the periphery now, are the South Africans led by Shell with their international partners. There's also talk of possibly getting something out of the methane gas that we know is in our Free State goldfields. One of the few gold mines in the world, Beatrix, has this problem with methane gas. And unfortunately, it's killed a lot of miners in the past. They don't want to do that anymore. So they're actually flaring it at the moment. They bring it to surface through a special system that they've got. And they flare it, but they want to turn that into energy. But all around the Free State there, they say there's a lot of methane gas. So that could also be turned to account. And you might say, well, what is South Africa going to do with its gas? Because it hasn't got the same infrastructure that the United States has. The United States got a network of pipelines. It can get that gas all over the country, so the logistics are in place. But people say, look, you've got the gas, you can turn it into electricity, on site, and then feed that into the national grid where you have got good logistics. You've got these electric lines all over the place. And so that's possibly a solution. But, the jury's still out. They've still got to find economical quantities of shale gas. Do we have those? And then work from there. But Sasol is already saying that it could be a game changer for them.
And then interest from foreigners in South African mining companies. Who do you think we're going to see a lot of in 2011?
Well, I don't think we're going to see a lot of anybody until we get our legislative framework sorted out. We saw the Constitutional Court, the highest court in the land, this week, slap the Department of Mineral Resources over the wrist. And, I think we've had this constant complaint about our legislative framework. We've got the state being the custodian of the mineral rights, which happened from 1994. They find the job very heavy work. It's a huge administrative burden, which they never really properly geared up for. So we have a whole lot of problems. Prospecting rights were dished out right, left and center. We saw the Constitutional Court overturn one of those, which could be a sign of things to come, because they said that the local community hadn't been properly consulted. So you now got the department saying, well, what is the definition of consultation? What do we have to do here? So the new legislation should be out by the middle of next year. And, it's got to be competitive in order to allow this industry to develop. We're sitting on $2.5 trillion worth of minerals and metals in the ground. Those need to be turned to account, but they won't be turned to account unless there's a proper legislative framework. And we would like to see more activity from the bigger players, from BHP Billiton, which actually grew out of this country. It was developed in this country, and now you see it slowly becoming uncertain about South Africa, because on the aluminium side, it needs a lot of electricity and it's not getting it, so it can't expand there. On the manganese side, it needs a lot of rail, and it's not convinced of that. And then on the coal side, where it's looking for a carbon price, so it's also got a question mark. So, you don't see any growth coming out of BHP Billiton. Rio Tinto, Tom Albanese, the CEO, said, we've got to do more in Africa. He's tried to do something in South Africa. He was hoping for a lot of coking coal with the coal find in the Limpopo, but we can see he's just sold that off. He sold that off to Coal of Africa. So he's still trying to find more opportunities. He's willing and wanting to come in, but again, not so many opportunities. So we fall back on the old favourites of Xstrata and Anglo, hoping that they will. Anglo's, by the end of this year, it will have spent 14 billion rand, on capital expenditure. So it is still quite active in South Africa. And then lower down the line, you've got companies that are hurting. You've got Coal of Africa, which wanted to mine the coking coal close to Makambubwe, but has been stopped from doing so by very strident environmentalists who don't seem intent on backing off. So you've got that environmental issue there. They have bought the coal interests of that was sold by Rio Tinto. So they're looking at regrouping, and they have got other Limpopo interests. So one might see some of the new prospects that they've got hold of going ahead of Vele, which was their problem child. And now we've got another company hurt, Unkwe Platinum, which thought it was well away with a black economic empowerment partner, Genora. And the Constitutional Court said to Genora, you're no longer going to get those prospecting rights because you never consulted with the local community. And meanwhile, the local community is regrouped and they're now bidding for those assets. And in terms of our legislation, Section 104, they stand ahead of everyone else in the queue if they do. So a lot of red tape, layers of red tape, have to be cut through. And it's something that South Africa is going to have to consider because they're looking for growth out of the mining industry. But the C word has to be there. You have to be competitive. You have to be competitive against the other countries. You're a global player. So if you low down on the list, they will just ignore you, the investors, because they're too scared of burning their fingers. And it's only when you sort out your legislative framework that they will be prepared to come back in, because their shareholders will hurt them if they don't make sure that the legislative framework is correct. So I think on the outlook for foreign investment, it's still blurred. But we definitely need it. If they are going to have, a state mining company that is going to be developmental, the idea of the Economic Development Department is that the existing private sector mining company, which they already describe as strong, must be made much stronger and not just controlled through the legislation, but enabled through the legislation. And we are awaiting that from Susan Shabangu, who's working hard on it. She convinces us, and that competitiveness is right top of her mind.
So it looks like 2011 holds a lot for us.
It does.
Thanks very much, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.